Tonight on CTV, the statewide manhunt for what authorities call a credible threat is over. But what comes next in the investigation? We'll tell you more and talk to students about the effects these threats had later on.
Plus, student government is back in session, but not without discussing the results of the election.
Now, I was a candidate in these past elections, and I see a clear conflict of interest of a candidate having any connection to the governing body of these appeals.
And if you were a fan of the hit Nickelodeon show Drake and Josh, you might want to stick around for an exclusive interview with Drake Bell, who performed at the Aggie this week. All this and more tonight on CTV.
Days before the 20th anniversary of the Columbine High School massacre, Colorado students were asked to stay home because of a Florida woman's threats. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Crist.
And I'm Marlo Lundak. Public schools stretching across Colorado are reopened today after yesterday's statewide manhunt. 18-year-old Sol Pais, the high school student from Florida who was reportedly infatuated by the 1999 Columbine shooting, was found dead Wednesday morning near Mount Evans. Law enforcement officials say Pais was considered a credible threat after posting alarming social media threats and flying to Colorado, where she purchased a weapon. The investigation into the teen is still underway. Images of this woman, 18-year-old Sol Pais of Miami, Florida, have been plastered all over social media and news outlets for the last 48 hours. Just days before the 20th anniversary of the Columbine High School shooting, threats to Denver schools left more than 500,000 students across the state at home on Wednesday, including schools in the Poudre School District here in Fort Collins. Parents and students say this is a small price to pay for safety.
I think it was definitely the right way to handle the situation.
Despite statewide closures, CSU's campus continued on a regular schedule after the public safety team released an email Wednesday morning stating the university would remain open as there was no specific threat to CSU. Poudre High School student Claudia Strobel says how unsettling the situation was even after her school was closed.
It was a little bit stressful, especially since I heard that CSU wasn't canceled and front range classes weren't canceled either. So it's just like, even though I didn't have to go to school, it's stressful just to hear about like somebody being on the loose, not being caught yet,
Students around campus also spoke about the unfortunate circumstances the state faced on Wednesday.
It's crazy to see that the whole state shut down over one instance like that, but it's good prevention, I would say.
I thought it was pretty scary. It kind of came out of nowhere.
It's really messed up and just really insensitive, and there really are a lot of crazy people out there, and it's also really scary just because things like that do unfortunately happen in this country a lot.
I'm from Denver, and the Denver area we've had multiple lockdowns and shooters and situations, and I just think that it's unfortunate to have it be normalized for me.
I'm glad they took the precaution of shutting schools down because I got brothers in high school, so I'm glad they got shut down. They didn't have to worry about that.
Even though she's not a threat anymore, it doesn't mean it won't happen again, and it doesn't mean it's not sad still.
Yesterday's school closures come during a tense time across the state as the anniversary of the Columbine shooting is this Saturday. CTV's Edgar Cedillo sat down with a current Columbine student at the high school to talk about how the event still affects our generation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Peter Jennings at ABC News World Headquarters. We want to bring you up to date at the shooting at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado.
Black trench coats, if you were just joining us, there has been a school shooting in Littleton, Colorado.
20 years ago, when the eyes of the world turned to Columbine, as one of the worst mass shootings in America had just taken place, a lot of people were left wondering about what they just saw. Now, 20 years later, students at Columbine are working to change that.
Even just seeing videos and stuff of Columbine students running out of the school, that happened before I was born. That was 20 years ago. But we've all seen those and we've all been affected by those.
The students created the My Last Shot campaign, which aims to use the power of images to show audiences pictures of those who find themselves to be victims of gun violence.
The sticker idea was based off the organ donation thing. That's something you check off, and that's a completely normal thing. But it says, in the event that I die from gun violence, please publicize the photo of my death, #MyLastShot, and then you sign it with your signature. It is a clear sticker, so you can just put it anywhere on your license.
Students hope that with the My Last Shot campaign, they can start to instill a change in gun laws.
It's really hard because I feel like young people are the ones that are pushing for this the most, just because we've grown up with this. we are Generation Columbine. That's what we're called. Like, we've grown up with lockdown drills and we've grown up with shooter drills. Like, that's something that our parents or our grandparents or any generation before us has never had to experience.
And so I want to lift up the young people from Columbine, the generation of high school students who have grown up in this age of mass shootings and active shooter drills. I want to lift them up as they plead for change.
It's been nearly 20 years since the Columbine shooting took place, and now students are currently working to change how victims of gun violence are framed in the media.
The most important thing to do is to honor and respect the people that have to go through it.
The hope for these students is to partner with others like March for Our Lives so that future generations can go to school without the fear of being victims of gun violence.
What a powerful story, Edgar. It truly is a painful time for our state with the anniversary of Columbine coming up, but gun violence doesn't stop here.
That's right, Sunday. The students who created the My Last Shot campaign, which was born at Columbine, they're working with people here locally like Tom Sullivan, who's the father of Alex Sullivan, who died in the Aurora Theater shooting, as well as students from Parkland all the way across the country. So they're definitely working to get change here on the local scale, but as well as the national scale, maybe even go global too. So they're definitely working hard.
Absolutely, and I think the idea with My Last Shot here is that graphic photos of these shootings often aren't shown in the media, so it really puts the power back into the individual. So if you take the pledge, you're basically deciding if you were to die by gun violence that you do want your images published in order to enact change.
That's right, and I think one of the main points that they brought up was that we've become desensitized and kind of numb to these statistics. They said it wasn't just Columbine, it was Sandy Hook, it was Aurora, Orlando, all of these other places that have been shot have been victims. So they definitely want to see change because it has just become such a daily part of our lives.
It really has, and I know in your story you covered, she referred to herself as part of the Columbine generation, and I know you personally grew up in that district. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like?
That's right, and I know we've talked a little bit about this earlier today with how the difference between lockdowns here in Colorado as well as for where you grew up in Arizona. In Colorado, they were definitely intended to be lockdowns with as an active shooter drill. So we definitely grew up with them being like that.
Absolutely, and I learned within my research on my thesis that does have to do with media coverage of gun violence, is that the power of these images to truly connect an audience to these issues and cause change. So I think that is kind of the goal of My Last Shot here.
And later on throughout the show, we will remember those who we lost 20 years ago. Back to you, Ryan and Marlo.
Thanks, Sunday and Edgar. It truly is a rough time for our state right now. The man who killed a Colorado State patrolman during this March blizzard was charged with careless driving. Corporal Daniel Groves was struck by the man's vehicle while helping a driver on Interstate 76 in Weld County. Our hearts go out to the Colorado Patrol team during this difficult time.
Because of the recent student government elections and the drama that came with it, the Associated Students of CSU met for the first time in weeks last night. Ren Wadsworth has all the details on the aftermath of the election.
After weeks without a meeting, things began heating up in the Senate chamber as members of the audience brought up concerns with the recent election and lack of transparency in the Senate chamber.
The collegiate is student fee funded, and you're ripping up student fees, which already questions, what are you going to do with our student fees? Are you going to rip them up? You don't know. We also shouldn't have a student government where I have to question the honesty of who we elected and what they're doing.
The position of Speaker of the Senate was debated as members of the Senate chamber argued whether the position should be voted for by the public or by the Senate, and whether the position should stand on its own or if the Vice President should take on the responsibilities. Madison Taylor stepped down from her position as Chief Justice due to the conflict of interest of her running for Vice President while still remaining as Chief Justice.
Now, I was a candidate in these past elections, and I see a clear conflict of interest of a candidate having any connection to the governing body of these appeals. For that reason, I'm stepping down.
With limited money left in the budget for the year, senators began looking critically at bills introduced to ensure student fees are spent in the most impactful way. Ren Wadsworth, CTV, Channel 11.
The Senate moved all old business back a week so they could focus on new business. They will hold an extra meeting to address bills and resolutions they weren't able to address on Tuesday. Check back in with CTV next week for the latest.
April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so the Women and Gender Advocacy Center were tabling on the plaza this week to create public awareness about sexual violence and to educate the CSU community on preventing efforts. The Sexual Assault Victim Advocacy Center and Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains were also in attendance, using games to help educate students.
The bucket list puppy who received 100 hugs died during open heart surgery this week. The CSU Vet Teaching Hospital performed surgery on the 6-month-old German Shepherd yesterday, but unfortunately he couldn't be removed from the heart-lung machine. Logan, the puppy, suffered from heart defects since birth, so his foster family set up a bucket list which went viral.
You know, Marlo, today seems to be a pretty heavy news day, but I heard some news that might lift your spirits.
All right, let's hear it.
We're supposed to get a pink moon tonight, and I don't really know what that means because there's a lot of different types of moons.
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of pinks.
Exactly. I know you got fuchsia, you got your sand beach pink.
Hot pink, Barbie pink.
There's so many pinks. Now, our weatherman, Litos Castro, is going to give us some more information on this pink moon and maybe what shade of pink it'll be.
Let's hear it.
Well, Ryan and Marlo, it might actually be considered a late April Fool's joke because the moon is actually not going to be pink. We're going to call it a pink moon, but the color might actually be red, yellow, or orange depending on the atmospheric conditions outside. But yes, it will be in the sky, and it might be best to look out the window later tonight so you can see the color at its purest. Now, when we take a look at the moon, it's going to be, it's going to be visible when we look at it most. It's going to hit its peak at about 5:12 tomorrow morning. So when we are looking at it tonight, this might be the one chance that we have. So it might be best to just take a look out the window and appreciate the nice color that it has to it. But we will see another full moon next month on May 18th, so a full month before we see another one like this. But if you're not able to catch the moon this time, you could also look into the Lyrid meteor shower that will be happening on Sunday and Monday night. So Ryan, next time you tell me that the weather is boring, I'm going to remind you of this exciting weekend, and I'll have more about this weekend's weather after the break. Back to you two.
Thanks, Litos. I'm a little bored that it's not going to be pink. I wanted pink. You know, I guess orange will work. Anyways, the next dean of the CSU College of Health and Human Sciences will take over the college in August. Liz Youngblade, the current head of the Department of Human Development and Family Studies, was appointed earlier this week. According to Source, she was chosen above a number of other candidates in a nationwide search.
Lately, the CSU campus has seen a growing number of fake service animals, but the Student Disability Center wants students to know that it is, in fact, illegal to pretend your dog is a service animal so they can get into public spaces. CTV reporter Janae Hancock has more.
The sight of dogs on campus has always been a plus, especially for students who are in need of their service animals by their side.
Like my service dog helps me with walking. When I am out in a place where there's not a wall, it helps. I wander in my walking and I have balance issues, so I could fall over.
The American with Disabilities Act defines them as assistant dogs that are specially trained to perform tasks that directly mitigate a person's disability and to behave while in public.
I think that service dogs, even though they look cool, like they are medical equipment, right? And so like they're not just something that's fun, right? So I personally, like I've only been a service dog handler since January, and I can say that like kids think it's fun, like, oh my God, I get to take my dog everywhere with me. It's not, right? Like it feels like being a full-time mother all of the time. I always make the joke that like she keeps me from running into walls, but I have to keep her from eating magnets. So it's kind of like a trade-off there. And like, it's just like, just keep your pets at home, man. It makes our lives so much harder.
Pretending to have a service dog is not only illegal, but it threatens the safety of trained service dogs and their owners.
We had a student who had a service dog that was at CSU and needed their service dog. And it was attacked by a pet dog. And she had to, the training was so damaged that she had to not use the service dog anymore, and she had to leave school.
Students with service animals want their voices to be heard and respected.
The first problem is probably that these dogs are not like trained to be in public places, so they are a distraction. They can be aggressive. They can be they basically generally make the space not a learning space, right? So like the idea of campus is for everybody to be able to come here and learn to the best of their ability, but when you bring in pets that are only half trained or just have like basic pet skills, which are things like sitting and staying and all of those things, they actively disrupt like the learning environment, and that's a problem.
This is Janae Hancock reporting with CTV.
For more information about service animals, you can visit disabilitycenter.colostate.edu.
Now, Marlo, throughout these few weeks, we've been following the story about the baby shark on the 3rd floor of Yates.
That's right.
And they actually voted on a name for him. And we can see it, and it's Shaq, as in Shaquille O'Neal is who he is named after.
Okay. Okay, so we can change the song. Baby Shaq,
Shaq.
I think it sounds great.
I think that sounds great. Maybe we can get Shaq to sing it. And speaking of Shaq, they're actually trying to get Shaquille O'Neal to come down and meet Baby Shaq, who we're looking at right now.
Well, I think he definitely will come visit. Why wouldn't he?
Why wouldn't he?
I mean, he's a huge deal.
Yeah, he's named after a baby shark at the CSU campus. He
That's
better
amazing.
come.
He better.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We'd like to take this time to remember the 13 people who lost their lives at the Columbine High School 20 years ago.